Well, hello, everybody. How you doing? We want to welcome you to our video series. I'm your host, John Raab, joined, of course, by my beautiful co-host, Mr. DP Lyle. Doug, how you doing?
Just fine, John.
Man, we got a great show today. We got none other than international best-selling author Anthony Horowitz to come on. He's going to talk a little bit about the Moonflower Murders, which is now a show on PBS Masterpiece, which the first episode when we're taping this just screened the night before. And it's Anthony, this is about your 2022 book called The Moonflower Murders, which is like a sequel to the Magpie Murders. Am I correct?
That is absolutely right. Number two in what will eventually be a trilogy.
Okay. Give us a little bit about the Moonflower Murders and kind of tell us how this ended up on the screen.
Well, I mean, that's a quick question, which has a long answer. I'll try and be brief. Magpie Murders was a book which took me something like 7 years to write and was about a publisher called Susan Ryland who gets involved in the meta world of the book that she has published. So a murder takes place in the 21st century, like now, and the solution to that murder can be found inside the book, which is set in 1955 with a detective called Atticus Punt. And somewhere inside the book, the writer has concealed the mystery as to the murder that has happened in the present day. It sounds so complicated when I try to explain it, but it isn't really. And that was Moonflower Murders, and it did very well. It was put out by PBS. I think it was last year it came out, and the BBC showed it as well. Everybody loved it. So the sequel was a natural, except that there wasn't a book. I had never intended there to be more than one. So I wrote a second book, Moonflower Murders, which I then adapted. And this had the same setup, which is an editor, Susan Ryland, who is approached while she is in Crete, which is actually where I am now, by two parents whose daughter has vanished after they have read a book that she published. And the mystery as to where this girl is she alive or dead? What does she know about a murder that took place at her hotel 8 years ago? What is going on? The secret is inside the book. So what you get basically, if I'm going to just sum it up very quickly, is you get two murders for the price of one, two stories for the price of one, a murder inside a murder.
Wow. What was when you were writing the novel, and obviously this convoluted plot and a lot of tentacles, what's your process for doing that? I mean, how do you do? Are you an outliner? Or are you just a pantser? Or
I'm a very, very heavy outliner, Doug. I have to, you talked about it being complicated. And I want to say immediately to your audience that the whole joy of these pieces is I think that to watch, they don't feel complicated. I think you can write a murder mystery where people are scratching their heads and saying, what the hell is going on? Who is this character? Which world am I in? What am I meant to remember? It's all got to join together in a sort of a seamless and enjoyable way. One of the things we have in our show, which no other detective show is that we jump between time frames. So 1 minute you're in the 21st century, it's 2024, and you're in wherever, in Crete maybe, which is where the show opens, and then suddenly you go through a door and you're in 1955 and in a world of fiction. And to make this work, to make it an enjoyable experience, takes planning. So yeah, structure and more structure, hours and hours, maybe more time spent thinking about the book and working it out than actually writing it in its sort of first draft.
Did you like outline the two time frames separately, so to speak, and then mesh them together, or did you just kind of go in sequences you were writing about?
Because with these shows, the clues to what is happening now exist then in the book world. And so you've got to draw a line between the two. We get actors who play two different roles. You get an actor who comes down the stairs in one character in the 21st century. He goes through a door, he's turned into his equivalent character in 1955. And what he does then informs what happens now. God, I'm still making it sound complicated, aren't I? But it isn't. But this works only if you have worked out both the plot of the Atticus Punt novel and the plot of the modern novel. So you've got two murder investigations, and then you've got to draw the lines between them. I often say that I feel like one of those, telephone engineers with those thick cables, and they've got one in the left hand and one in the right hand, and each cable has like 50 multicolored cables coming out of it, and they've all got to somehow fit together. They've all got to link, and that's my job.
Now, like you said, the Magpie Murders came out. We talked about that book. I remember talking to you about that one. And then all of a sudden you get the hit TV show and they want another one. And you're like, oh, shoot, there's no book. So now it's a little different because you're kind of writing a book for the show. Is that kind of how you had to do that?
I had to write it actually in advance because they said that if you were going to do one show, they might want another. So I actually was told to start writing immediately a second book. It was actually what I'm doing at the moment is writing a third book. Here it is right here. In case you want to go again with a third season.
Let's take a picture of that page and
These
get a
shows,
preview.
Magpie Murders and Moonflower Murders, I can write them because I have a book. The book is the plan, if you like. The book tells me, it's everything. The book is the Bible, as we say in TV and film. It's got everything in it. All the truth is in there. And I cannot just write a 6-hour show out of my head. It won't work. I've got to have everything on the paper before I begin. So this is the book which I have with me now, and I will start adapting this for a hopefully third season, although of course it depends how Moonflower Murders does. We've had fantastic, phenomenal reviews in the States. I mean, I've been absolutely amazed and delighted with the response from the press. Now I hope to hear from the audiences that they enjoyed last night's show and we'll stick with it, for the next 5 weeks.
Well, I sure did. And so
Well,
I'll
thank you for
stick
that,
with
Doug.
it.
I
Yes,
appreciate
it was
that.
very
Yeah.
good. Do you have a title for the next one yet, or a
Yeah,
projected
Marble Hall
date or
Murders.
anything like that?
Marble Hall Murders. You notice the M's in my life. Magpie, Moonflower, Marble Hall. I also did a show in British TV called Midsummer Murders for years and
Right.
years. So somehow the letter M has M&M's probably should be my favorite chocolate. They aren't, but they should be.
How do you find the time to do all this? Because you do novels and series and a lot of other stuff. How do you find the time to do it?
I love what I do. It's a simple
Yeah.
answer to that one. I love writing. I love devising these plots. I love surprising audiences. I love the feedback. I love talking to you guys. I am the luckiest person in the world because if I wasn't paid a penny, I'd still do the same thing, and I'm actually earn a living out of it. And it is. I'm never happier than here I am now, sitting in Crete. I've got wonderful views of the Aegean in front of me. But what have I got right in front of me right now is my computer and my pages and my pens, and this is my life.
I agree.
Now, when you look at your Alex Rider series, of course, because you just came out with Nightshade's Revenge in 2023, and you have 13 books in that series, is Alex going to probably be somewhere in PBS Masterpiece? Or is there anything that we can look forward to see Alex here coming on the screen?
Well, he's been on actually, John. He was on Amazon. What was it?
Did I miss
Preview.
this
Amazon
one?
Preview have done 3 seasons of Alex with Otto Farron playing the part, and they were very, very successful. They're not doing any more. 3 seasons is enough for them, but we're not giving up. I'd love to see Nightshade and Nightshade Revenge both.
Yes.
I think they make a perfect pairing. And I'm married to Jill Green, who runs a company, and she never stops. We're talking about doing Hawthorne as well. My other series of books about Hawthorne, a detective who has me as his sidekick. We're looking at possibly even doing those for the screen next year too. So she and I never give up. And I really hope Alex comes back. It was a terrific show. I didn't write the script since then. That was a guy called Guy Burton. He did a fantastic, phenomenal job. But I'd love to see more of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alex is one of my favorite characters I mean, you've written so many, of course. We spoke a lot about when you did, your James Bond novels. Also,
I remember.
But I mean, you bring out more than 1, 2, 3 books a year, and you have everything going on. I mean, like Doug said, I don't know how you find the time. I mean, I'm glad you do, because I'm glad that we get to see all the work from you. But it's just amazing to kind of see how your career has just shot through the roof. And I guess in the last, 15 years, you would probably say?
I mean, overnight success that took 15 years. Is that another way of putting it? But yeah, I mean,
Typical,
look,
yeah.
it's I don't produce actually. To be honest with you, I only produce maybe 1 to 1.5 books a year. Sometimes, if I'm really in overdrive, I'll do 3 books in 2 years. But by and large, I do try not to do too much because one of the biggest fears I have as a writer, and I think this is a lesson for us all, is not to just be sort of churning it out, not to be another book. Let's get another one out. Alex Rider. I could have done 30 Alex Riders by now, but I didn't because I always say that writing is an adventure. Writing is an exploration. With every new book, it's an opportunity to surprise your readers and yourself, to do different things. I'm not an easy writer to pin down. I do kids' books, I do adult books, I do James Bond, I do murder mysteries, I do TV shows. So you wait till you see my next show, which is coming up next year. on MGM. I've got it on their platform. Nine Bodies in a Mexican Morgue, which is a murder mystery like no other. It's not even a murder mystery because it's not just a whodunit. It's much more a whodunit set in the Mexican jungle, and it's really, really out there. And we're just editing that now. So, it's always a case of forward motion, of what's the next big idea, what's the next surprise, what's the next thing that will just sort of, outshine what I did last. And that to me is the joy of writing.
Mm-hmm. So MGM's going to put out the next one. That sounds
That's
absolutely
we shot it
Yeah.
over the summer, and it's I'm just watching the edits now of I've seen the first 4 episodes. It's a 6-part, and I've seen 4 of them. Yeah, it's
Okay.
fun.
And that'll be next summer.
I think it'll be earlier than that. I think it might be spring even. I don't know.
Okay, cool. Wow. That
now,
sounds fascinating.
I mean, one of the things that a lot of authors sell their option and they never do anything else with the book or the movie. It just goes on. But you're very hands-on. Was that something that you said you wanted to do at the very beginning? Like if someone options my book to a movie, you wanted to be a part, you wanted to help with the screenwriting, you wanted to be like right in there?
But John, I know when to do it and when not to do it. So when, for example, Alex Rider was made for Amazon, I took a back seat. I was an EP, and I did work on the scripts. I did a lot of writing with Guy Burt, and there were a lot of conversations with him. But he took those books and he ran, and it was all the better for not having me as the main writer on that show. But other times, Hawthorne, if we do that one, and definitely these very complicated Magpie, Moonflower, and Marble Hall, I feel it's probably a mistake to pass it to somebody else because I know the book so intimately, and someone else is going to have to sit there and thumb through all these different pages and clues and red herrings and characters and twists and turns, whatever. They're going to go crazy. So it's much easier for me to do it, really. And obviously having my wife Jill Green producing means that we have a very, very strong working relationship. Not a bad marriage either, but a really strong working relationship. That's what really counts for us. And I love it. I love doing that. Television we are in such an interesting time with the sort of shows, the quality of the shows that we're seeing on the screen now, even though the industry is at the same time in a difficult and dangerous place. Getting stuff made is not as easy as it should be, but it's still an enormous fun. When you see a show coming together on the screen, when I was watching Moonflower Murders for the first time and saw, what some of these actors, getting Mark Gatiss, the great Mark Gatiss. You've seen him briefly in episode 1, but he is so wonderful in this show. And Pepper Bennett Warner, who plays Punt's assistant. You look at these, what they bring is something you never get when you're alone in a room, even in a room in Crete, which is this sort of just this joy. This sort of, wow, that's my work, and it's sort of by somebody else.
Well, you've got this next the trilogy, the third one coming, and you've got the Bodies in the Morgue thing coming. What else is percolating inside your brain as far as
But as I
things
said, we're
down the
looking at
road?
Hawthorne. That'll be the next big one for me to actually get that to work. Because the books in which I'm a character, instead, I am sort of the Watson to his Holmes. He's the detective, and I'm a sort of the idiot trailing 5 steps behind him, trying to work out what it's all about, even though I'm the one who has to write the book. That's the fun of it. And how to turn that into a show on TV that will work isn't as easy as you might think. It needs something else to make that to make it work in this. I'm exploring what is called metafiction. And I'm very comfortable in this area. It's a wonderful world to explore, which is where you're not just writing a murder mystery show, but you're examining the writing of it and the sense of it and what works and what doesn't and why people want to watch it or read it. And what is a detective story? Why is it called a detective story rather than a murder story? Or is it called both? These are questions that you can explore, and that takes away the fourth wall and makes it sort of metafictional. So there's a ton of things I still want to do. I've now forgotten what your question was, but I'm going to do them anyway.
That's perfect. Let me ask you this. Your childhood and the way you grew up and all that kind of stuff, how do you think that informed what you're doing now? And when did you decide this is the path I'm going to take?
I was 10 years old, Doug, when I knew I wanted to be a writer. And there was absolutely no plan B in my life. I always knew with certainty I was born a writer, I was going to be a writer. And if I wasn't going to be a writer, there was nothing else I was able to do. So I was in trouble. And in relation to my child, I didn't have a particularly happy childhood. I had a privileged childhood. My parents were wealthy, but I was sent to a really, really soul-destroying, character-destroying, psychologically destructive school where I think of myself as a real survivor from that experience. And the only thing that saved me at that time was the library and reading and books. and a realization. But although my teachers told me as often as they possibly could that I had no talent at all, they were wrong. I was a storyteller. And I discovered that very young. It was a boarding school. I told stories to the kids in the dormitory where we slept 10 kids to a room. I was the one who was always being told off at night for talking after lights out, come and stand in the corridor. But I did it because I could tell stories. That's how I made friends. That's how I discovered myself. And that's all I've ever done. And to this day, Doug, I am no good pretty much at anything else. I write, I tell stories. As I say, I am blessed because I earn a living from it. There never was and never will be a plan B.
I think the most telling thing you said there, I think for our writer friends out there and wannabe writer friends, is you have to be a storyteller first. You can figure out how to tell it. You can get all the chops, you can practice, you can learn, but if you don't, you gotta have that storytelling mentality. And I think that's critical.
And I'll add something else to that, Doug, if I may, to any writers who are listening to this, that self-belief. You know, I was being told day in, day out, you are useless, you will never achieve anything, you're not going to be a success in life. And I just wouldn't listen. I said, no, I am going to be a writer. And as we said earlier, I wasn't an immediate success. The first 9 books I wrote, they were published, but they didn't sell any. And then I could have given up, I could have stopped, it wasn't looking good. Then I wrote Alex Rider, and suddenly, bam.
Yep.
Yeah. So, AnthonyHorowitz.com is your website where everyone can kind of find out everything about you. Now, what social media platform are you a little bit more active on where people can kind of stay informed and, maybe just chat with you a little bit?
John, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. I came off social media on January the 1st of this year. I'd been very active on X, or Twitter as it was before then, but I had found that social media was causing me a great deal of upset to my sort of well-being and sense of happiness. And my wife was becoming concerned about it, that when I was being drawn into worlds and subjects and discussions I didn't really want to have. So I'm afraid I pulled the plug on social media at the beginning of this year. I'm very happy talking to you guys. I talk to a lot of people when I go to festivals, and I respond to people from my website or anyone else who reaches out to me. I'm still very much available, but I'm afraid to say that, X, TikTok, Instagram, all the rest of them, it's not for me.
Too much. Now, do you come to the States and do a lot of conferences over here so people in the States can find out and maybe get their book signed?
Not enough, to be honest with you, John. I would like to come more often. My publishers, whom I love, have seemed to sort of pulled back on author tours. The author tour was commonplace 20 years ago. Nowadays, it seems that the publishers don't feel that they're getting their, that it's not worth the money, that it's not worth the effort to do it. And I don't come to America as much as I'd have liked to have. I was going to come to BoucherCon this year, which I'd have loved to have done, but that didn't work out in the end, so I missed that. But there's always a chance for that. I was at the Edgar Allan Poe Awards, or the Poe Awards, I think this year or last year. Look, invite me, I'll come. If anybody wants, I love meeting readers. I love going to literary festivals. This year I've been all over the world on different talks and different festivals. I've got Iceland and Malta still to come before we get to the end of this year. But America hasn't featured for some reason on my map. Not my fault. I'm there if anybody wants me.
Well, BoucherCon's in New Orleans next year. I'll just throw that out.
I love New Orleans.
Yeah,
I remember I had New
exactly.
Year's
Everybody
Eve there
loves
one
New
year, and I
Orleans.
thought it was the most amazing city. Wonderful place.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Anthony, we want to just thank you for taking a little bit of time to talk to us a little about the Moonflower Murders and other things you got going on in your career. Again, everybody, the Moonflower Murders is out, PBS Masterpiece. Episode 1 was just last night when we're recording this. So, Anthony, we can't wait to look forward to see, the end of the trilogy here in Marble Hall Murders. A little bit of a tongue twister for me. And hey, you be safe. And again, thank you so much for the time. And, can't wait to see what you got coming on next.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Right. And we want to do this again around the time that Marble Hall comes out. So
anytime,
we'll reach out then. Thank you very much.
Very happy to. Yes. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You too.